Hi, my name is Stephanie Martinez. I'm going to talk about the assessment strategy of using a rubric to grade an oral presentation. My PLC group is group Don't Test Me. So I'm going to go into my presentation now. My standard is World Language CM2. Participate in real-world spoken, written, or signed conversations related to the self and immediate environment, creating sentences and strings of sentences to ask and answer a variety of questions in transactional and some informal settings. So my entire lesson is to introduce the vocabulary of the house in Spanish. We're going to watch an introductory video where they tour Frida Kahlo's house in Mexico City. They're exposed to the vocabulary with a list, and then their summative assessment at the end of the week will be to create an oral report where they will be using spoken word to describe a model they built of their dream home. So they're going to be using the vocabulary that we go over in class, as well as the verb querer, which means to want, because they have to tell me what they want in their dream home. So I created a rubric for this oral presentation. So for every rubric, you want to have a criteria. Mine is the language skills and the creativity. You also want to have a grade scale. I use point values because for middle school we use points and percentages. You can change this to be more like satisfactory, excellent, and not acceptable, or something more generic as well. So for my class, for 10 points, they need to use the Spanish vocabulary correctly, as well as the target verb, which is querer, to want, and they make little to no errors in their spoken sentences. This can also be sentences that are follow-up questions from their peers or for me. And for creativity, I want them to create a home model that is very creative and allows their original thoughts, which will facilitate their speaking skills to be a little bit better. 7.5 points is where the student uses their vocabulary well. Maybe they make some errors or they don't use the verb correctly. And they show a little creativity, but overall it's not super outstanding. And on the 5 points, they're not using the correct vocabulary, or they're not speaking in complete sentences. Maybe they're not speaking complete sentences in Spanish. And their home model is not original. Maybe it's a replica or something that they've already seen. My learning intention is I will be able to use specific words in Spanish that relate to the spaces in a house by creating my idea of a dream house. So I want them to use their target language, use a vocabulary that we're working on for this unit, and that's how they're going to demonstrate to me their understanding. So for rubrics, like we went over, you always need criteria and you always need a grading scale. It's important that you be clear about expectations, but not overly specific. So I want to use words like target vocabulary and the verb querer, but I'm not going to give them the words exactly in my rubric. I'm not going to basically give them the answers, but I want to still be specific enough to be clear about what I expect. Always show sample work or model the activity before you introduce your rubric. It's hard to see a rubric and visualize it when you're a student, so it's nice to see a model if it's something written, or like for example the house. I can show previous examples of that. And I personally would probably give them a 1 or 2 minute oral presentation of a guideline of what I think that their presentation should sound like. And at the end of it all, I would encourage students to self-assess both during their process and after. A lot of times you find that students who follow the rubric do a good job because they know they can meet all of the criteria to achieve the score they need. And also afterwards, students are usually harder on themselves than teachers are on them. And I know that to be true both as a student and as a teacher. So overall, I use rubrics mostly for summative assessments, but formative in the sense of students self-assessing throughout. That can be their formative assessment, and I can kind of help them using the rubric as a model to give informal feedback prior to their summative grade. So that's it. That's how I will be using my assessment strategy, and I hope this was helpful. Thank you.